In 2010, two IT managers from Godfrey Hirst travelled from Geelong to the IBM Innovation Centre in Montpellier, France. This is the story of a partnership driving a 30-year journey of innovation.
Well, it's quite an old company by Australian standards. Godfrey Hirst started around 1865. At that time, Geelong was a processing centre for raw wool coming out of the Western District and being shipped off to the UK in particular. And some locals at the time who were involved in the wool industry felt that there's an opportunity there to process the wool further here. And so on our existing site in South Geelong, they started spinning woolen yarn and eventually making fabrics for a variety of purposes for sale locally and abroad. In the 1960s, the current owners acquired the business and converted that manufacture into the manufacture of tufted carpet. There's been enormous levels of innovation, and I think that's been one of the strengths of Godfrey Hirst. Godfrey Hirst started off as a very small player in the market 40 years ago and is now clearly the leader across Australia and New Zealand, probably about 3 times the size of our nearest competitor. And that's been achieved through decades of reinvestment, ploughing money back into improved equipment, information, processes, and because there's a genuine passion and love of the business and making carpet by the owners and many of the employees here. So you know, that's just part of the culture, that reinvestment and innovation, looking for new and better ways.
I started at Godfrey Hirst in 1974, directly out of university as an electronic engineer.
Godfrey Hirst is an interesting client because they've been basically working with IBM for a very long time, approximately 30 years, if not more than that. Most companies that we deal with potentially do not have that long-term relationship with IBM, and that's basically because that IBM has been an integral part of their business from a technology point of view. I think without IBM's involvement over the years, Godfrey Hirst may not have been in the position where they are today as one of the most successful manufacturers in the Australian market.
The textile industry was one of the first applications for computers that emerged out of the card systems, etc. And so we've been at the forefront of that, and Jeff McCauley, he's been involved since those very early days, 40 years ago or so, when computing was just a concept, if you like, and gradually being introduced around some textiles equipment. So right through from buying raw materials through the supply chain, manufacturing, sales order entry, web interfaces now with our customers who can choose products and colours and designs and communicate with us that way. Our IT systems and computing's been integral to the business for many years.
Innovation's all about maximising what you have, and in some cases older technologies are still the latest and innovative. It's not necessarily because it's the latest does it necessarily mean that it's the best. So what we do, we hold a balance between the absolute latest and what has worked well previously with us. We certainly don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Montpellier is an IBM Innovation Centre, but it's more than that. It's a place where experts from around Europe go and they test IBM hardware. So, as an example, a customer might be evaluating an environment. This customer could be in England, they could be in France, they could be anywhere else in Europe. They will bring their piece of software, they'll bring their application to Montpellier, and there'll be a team of experts there who are willing and able to trial how that application will perform on IBM equipment.
For Godfrey Hirst, in going to Montpellier was a rather obvious yes, in the sense that we have always had a commitment to people venturing overseas and finding out the latest and greatest and where the general industry in whichever aspects that we have an interest in. Computing is going down a path of understanding green and understanding the world as far as where we need to be. Previously it was just more power, just throw whatever you could at it and that'll be okay, because really we're not really responsible for how much energy we use and whether we're using too much. The direction to virtual servers, you have so much computing power that you don't use. But if you have another application which is cheap to buy more hardware, just throw more and more at it. And there's been that direction that IBM is taking, and we're now moving with IBM in that direction in terms of making the maximum of what we've got and changing things over to software-based rather than having it hardware-based.
Well, an immediate benefit of the trip to Montpellier was a look at our computer facilities, the IT room, and the way we were having some challenges around how we were controlling the temperature. There's quite a bit of processing power in there and quite a bit of warmth generated. And they came back with some ideas around that climate control, having observed some of the facilities in Montpellier, and with some quite simple, cost-effective solutions, just about the way we divided up the room and flow of air through the room. So that was just a simple example of a quick win that we were able to achieve. Of course, there's some much more complicated emerging technologies that they saw as well, and those will take longer. But the important thing is that they've seen those opportunities and technologies. They're alerted to those possibilities, and as they think about possibilities and options for us going forward, then that thinking comes into it.
With the green world, there's been a real push in terms of reducing the energy requirements in terms of computer room usage and so forth. Now, they had an expert in that field, and he had a number of different computer room setups with all sorts of trials. And in particular, there was one there which was simply a plastic curtain, and that baffled the hot and cold air. And he said just simple things in that regard made a huge difference in actually the air conditioning requirements. Now, we've trialled that in Australia, and yes, it does work, and the cost is minimal. It's not it's an innovation.
I think Montpellier demonstrates that the business that we're in now is much more than just selling them pieces of hardware. So we want to demonstrate it through facilities like Montpellier that it's all about knowing what the problem is, being able to coach the customer through what the potential solutions could be, and then being able to suggest, well, we're at this point where you could actually implement on IBM hardware. Does that make sense for you? And these might be 10 reasons why you can do it that way. And then again, it's a cycle of evaluation. So if the customer has requirements that are consistently changing, we want to be in a position to be able to respond and guide and influence. And I think that's what a joint partnership means.